everybody, and welcome back to another episode of From BA to Broadway, your premier showbiz education podcast. You know who it is. It's me. It's Mr. Brennan Stefanik, your host, and I'm bringing you those general programming reminders. Folks, every Monday we are here with our main series, and every Friday we are here with our mini-series In the Spotlight. But today's not Friday. That's not what we're here for. Folks, today I am joined by dear friend, theater professional, Miss Ellie Handel. Ellie, what is going on?
Hey, Brennan.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Ellie, who the heck are you and what do you do?
Gosh, what a question. I think I would just say that I'm a theater person.
Amazing.
I'm a cat person.
Okay.
Food person. Okay, we're going with the person thing.
Great.
Yeah, I love to make stuff.
Amazing. What kinds of things are we making here? What kind of art are we making? What kind of food are we making?
Oh my gosh.
Probably not what kind of cats are we making, but...
No, we have a cat already.
Of course.
Lucy's not here with us, but she's here in spirit.
In spirit.
What art are we making? We're making authentic art.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's like I think number one in my life right now is like, because I teach.
Yeah.
And so I teach my students that they can kind of do whatever they want.
Heard.
And so it's summer, which is like really exciting. But I spent the year really kind of trying to convince them that they can do whatever they want.
Hell yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
We'll come back to all the details of your teaching because I'm very interested to hear about that. But the second question is usually, how do we know each other?
Well, we know each other from my best friend, Danny.
Of course, Mr. Daniel J. Solly.
Who's a regular.
Yeah, friend of the pod, you could say.
Totally.
Very close.
100%.
Family of the pod, 100%.
Yeah.
And Ellie, did you go to school for theater?
I sure did. And with Danny.
Whoa. Okay, so what was your degree?
We got a BFA in drama.
Amazing.
And Danny and I were Welcome Week friends.
Wow, from day one.
Day one.
Maybe not day one, but however many days.
I mean, kind of from day one.
Incredible.
Yeah, we were in the same arts rep group.
Okay.
And then I was like, this guy's awesome. I'm never letting him go.
There we go.
And 10 years later.
The rest is history, as they say.
It's true. He's never getting rid of me.
Ellie, when did theater and art enter your life? Was it always there? Did you come from like an artistic area, artistic upbringing?
That's such a good question. I think forever.
Okay.
My mom is a music teacher.
Amazing.
A kinder music teacher, actually.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
No, not at all.
It's like a children's music program that has kind of like levels.
Okay.
And so you start at like infant, toddler, infant, very baby, and it goes until maybe elementary school.
Oh, wow.
And so she brought me into her kinder music classes.
That's incredible.
And I remember, well, not when I was like a baby, but I remember sitting in a circle and like people would give us instruments, maybe like a little shaker egg or like a tambourine or something. And I just remember loving that. And so, yeah, my mom is a big musical influence. So
gotcha.
Art has been a big thing, but music in particular came from my mom.
Okay.
And so kinder music led to music classes, which led to my failed career in piano.
Oh, no.
Failed.
Was it something that you wanted to do, or was it something that you felt you kind of had to do?
My mom really forced me to.
Understood.
And she cried when I quit.
Oh, my God.
She was so upset.
Listen, that's a dream that you just can't pass on,
Yeah. She really wanted me. And honestly, and I tell Danny this all the time because he's a fantastic pianist. I tell him, your mom did it right. My mom let me quit.
Okay.
And that was a mistake.
I don't know. I don't know if anyone should be forced to learn an instrument.
It's true.
But...
And I didn't actually stop playing. I just started playing cello.
Gotcha. Okay.
That was my main instrument.
Wow. Okay.
So I played cello and I played clarinet, although I was much better at cello.
Understood.
For 10 years.
Wow.
All through elementary school, middle school, high school. And then I sang. My mom also was a part of a choir in our church, which...
Gotcha.
Church is a fantastic and weird word coming from my mouth because it was not a normal church. It was a Unitarian Universalist church.
Of course.
Which, a non-denominational church.
Yeah.
And so she had a singing group and we would go and see her sing. And so, it's very tied to my mom. And then food is tied to my dad, I would say.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did your schools have a good arts program? Did you go to public school and stuff or
I went to private school and it wasn't like an arts school, but we did have a good arts program.
Gotcha.
And we had some really invested teachers who were like, we're going to do whatever we can.
Amazing.
To encourage these students. And my school in particular let us do a bunch of different art stuff.
Okay.
So some schools I know you have to choose like a sport or a musical.
Okay.
Or, you know,
yeah.
Like High School Musical, The Wildcats.
Of course. I'm familiar with the franchise. Big fan, in fact.
Yeah, totally. So my school, we had early morning rehearsals, 8 a.m. rehearsals for theater.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the afternoon, you could do a sport, you could do band, it just was kind of whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably an early influence, and my parents too, of people saying you can do whatever you want.
Gotcha.
To me. Like, / I think people have tried to put me in boxes my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been people who have been like, why are you trying to put yourself in a box?
Heard.
There's no reason to.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so then when did theater enter the arena? How did that come about?
So, music classes, and then, I don't know, my mom must have been like, let's get her in a show, because also, my God, I'm talking so much about my mom, she's going to love it. She started out as a musical theater major herself.
Oh, wow, okay.
At San Francisco State many years ago, and then she was like, I hate auditioning, so
gotcha.
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so I think she was kind of like, let's get Ellie into this because I feel like she might like it. She's my daughter, blah, blah, blah. And so I did this camp called Broadway Bound.
Okay.
Through my school. And it was run by the same teacher who taught us chorus and band and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And our first show was Cinderella.
Oh, okay.
And I was a dancing chef.
Amazing.
And I've told this story so much because I just directed Cinderella at NYU. And it was total happenstance. It wasn't because it was the first show I ever did.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to bring a bowl and a spoon from home because at that point, although I was like doing a musical, I wanted to be a chef.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so that was the perfect mix for you.
And I was like, oh my God, this is the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And I loved every second of it.
Heard.
So that was my first show.
Mm-hmm.
And then Broadway Bound was my life.
Okay. Understood. Was it a once-a-year thing? Was it a summer thing?
Yeah.
Understood. Okay.
And I just did it every year. And it was like, well, we can't go on vacation during June. Because,
oh my God.
Because it's Broadway Bound.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So then when did it kind of sink in that you knew that you wanted to do this?
So there's a pretty famous story.
Okay.
When I was 11 and going into middle school, as I've mentioned, my two great loves in life have been, music, theater, and food.
Yes.
I decided that I had to choose what I was going to do for the rest of my life.
Understood. It's a very middle school. It's the time to do it. It's the time to make these really big decisions.
Exactly. I mean, elementary school to middle school, like that is becoming an adult.
The formative years, as I'm pretty sure they call it.
I think, I wish I could understand what was going on in that 11-year-old's brain.
Yeah.
But I really felt strongly that, like, I can't waste my time anymore.
And that's so valid, Yeah. Yeah, at 13 years old, not even, 11 years old.
Yeah.
Really time to whip yourself into shape.
Yeah, exactly. We can't slack off anymore.
No, absolutely not.
No.
No fun.
No fun.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I was like, I can't keep splitting my time. Like, I can't keep doing this anymore. So the famous story is I took my parents out onto the porch. It was around this...
Okay. Okay, we're out on the porch. Yes.
We're out on the porch. It was around this time, May, after school had ended, going 5th grade into 6th grade, and I said, Mom and Dad, I'm 11 years old now, and it's time I choose what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I know. Brace yourself. Yourself.
I'm buckled up.
And they went, okay. And I said, so, I've really, as you've noticed, I love food, and I've wanted to be a chef for most of my life. But I also really love musical theater. And so by the end of the summer, I will have decided which one I'm going to choose. And then I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. And they said, okay, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, Mother, I would like to do both a cooking camp and Broadway Bound.
Okay.
And the musical theater camp. And then I will compare the two. And then I'll let you know which one I'm going to pursue.
Heard.
At the end of the summer.
I imagine you're wearing a business suit and you have a PowerPoint presentation.
I do.
That's what I'm picturing on your porch.
I do think I must have had a visual aid of some
Okay,
sort.
that does not surprise me.
I came prepared.
Of course. You had convincing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And, God bless my parents. They were like, okay, Ellie, you let us know.
Yeah.
No problem. So I went through all the cooking camps with my mom, and I chose an Italian cooking camp.
As you should, of course.
Yeah, because I was like,
Mia.
that's the Mamma Mia. That's the best. I was obsessed with Italian food when I was younger. And so we started out, I'm pretty sure it was cooking camp first, and then it was Broadway Bound.
Okay.
And I remember going, and I was so excited. They gave me, now I'm forgetting the word. I want to say toot, but that's not right. Now I'm forgetting the word, but it's the chef hat. They gave us all like little chef hats.
Great.
And I loved it until, so as a week-long camp.
Yep.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, loved it. I was like, this is my life. I'm going to be an Italian chef. And then Thursday, as you may or may not know, I am lactose intolerant.
Yes.
And Thursday, I got horribly ill.
Oh, no. Did you know you were lactose intolerant at the time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I knew, but you had to taste the food.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't even like really eating the food because it was all dairy, but like just tasting it, I got myself so sick. And I couldn't go to the last day, which was gelato.
Oh.
And I was so sad, but I was like, this might not be the career for me.
Yeah.
So I put it aside and I was like, well, okay. I got through most of it. And then I did Broadway Bound. I forget what show it was.
Okay.
And that was a good experience, as it was every year because I was obsessed with it.
No dairy involved.
No dairy involved.
In fact, bad for the boys.
Exactly. Everyone's actually avoiding dairy there. I felt like, oh my God, let me people,
You're seen.
Yeah. And then at the end of the summer, I pulled them back on the porch.
Of course.
And I said...
With the analysis and the research.
Exactly. I said, I have my data, and I've come to the conclusion that I cannot be a chef because I love food too much to make it a career.
Understood. Yes. And so true.
and I can't cook Italian food because it's going to make me sick.
Yeah.
And they went, okay. And so I said, so I'm going to be an actor. And they said, well, okay, Ellie. Great. And here I am, 29 years old.
Yep.
And although I'm more than just an actor these days, here I am in theater.
There you go. Doing the thing.
Yeah. Truly. So that's, insanely long-winded, but welcome to my life.
Thrilling. Lots of peaks and valleys there. Did you ever try and do the thing where you tried to like wean yourself out of being lactose intolerant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well,
unsuccessful?
See, Brennan, you can't get me talking about food because...
I'm curious.
I'm known for, and my dad too, we're known for sampling.
Okay, of course.
And tasting, I would say. So we had this place called Old Country Buffet that we would go to.
I love the Old Country Buffet.
Have you been there?
I have been to a Old Country Buffet. I don't even know what state it was in, but on our band trips, we used to compete.
I loved going on the band trips. That's my favorite part of being a band.
When we would go to nationals down in, started in Pennsylvania and then it changed to New Jersey or something. On our way, either there or back, I think there, on the way there, we would stop at the Old Country Buffet. And we would get so sick because we would just gouge ourselves in these unlimited bottomless pits of food at the Old Country Buffet.
Oh my God.
Oh. Wow, good times. I forgot all about that until this moment.
I'm so glad someone else besides me knows about Old Country Buffet.
Yep, 100%. I'm right here with you. I'm locked in.
So, okay. Oh my God. So, yeah, Sophie, my sister, and I grew up at Old Country Buffet.
Gotcha.
And there was this mac and cheese there. That was so good.
So good.
It could have been Kraft, but I was...
No. I refuse to believe.
I think they made it.
Yeah.
And... I would get little ketchup containers.
Oh my God.
The little ones. And I would, after dinner, my parents would be like, where's Ellie? And Sophie's like, she's getting her mac and cheese. And I would put it in the ketchup container and I would bring it back and I would cover that shit in Parmesan.
Oh my God.
Because I can eat Parmesan. That's the one cheese I can eat.
Interesting. Okay.
Hard cheese, no lactose. That's the secret.
Wow. Okay.
I can't eat. I'm getting to the point where I actually can't have too much of it, but like a little sprinkle is okay.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, just douse it.
Understood.
And I would bring it back to the table and I would slowly, piece by piece, eat my mac and cheese. And sometimes I go back for a second one.
Of course, as you should.
But even it was a ketchup container, so
yeah.
it's okay. But yeah, so I would sneak and try different things.
Understood.
And when I was a kid, I would try to like have one dairy thing a day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I grew out of that pretty quickly.
Understood. Yeah.
And then the big thing was I went to a friend's birthday party and they had this big wheel of brie.
Oh, okay.
Surrounded by strawberries.
Yeah.
And it was like, the brie and the strawberry on a cracker. Oh my God. I probably ate half that wheel of brie. I put that thing away. And when I tell you I was so sick, I was in her house, like doubled over the bathroom, and I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I am like officially allergic to this stuff.
Understood. Okay. You were very brave though.
Yeah.
You gave it a shot. And that's all that we can ask for. So we decide to pursue theater. And then college-wise comes up. What was your process with that? Where did you want to go? How did you come to these decisions?
So similarly to the whole chef versus theater thing, I told my dad that I was going to go to NYU when I was 8 years old.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, I was a crazy little kid.
Listen, I get it.
And when I was 8 years old, at that time I wanted to be a chef.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, okay, Ellie, you want to go to NYU? If you get in, I'll pay for it.
Okay.
I'll figure out a way to pay for it. I mean, and like we did not necessarily have the means to do that.
Yeah.
Fast forward 8 years. Mm-hmm. I'm in school and it's interesting. I was listening to one of another podcast this morning and hearing somebody else talking about their time in high school going into college. And I remember thinking there was no other option.
Yeah.
Like and not in like a pressure kind of way.
For sure.
Everyone was just kind of like, of course Ellie will go into musical theater.
Yeah.
Like once I decided at 11 years old that I was going to pursue theater, I mean, that was kind of it.
Yeah.
And I really poured every single ounce of myself into theater and music.
Gotcha.
I was still very much a band kid, like we said.
Totally.
Loved those competitions. Oh my God, that's probably why I played clarinet.
Heard.
Because I loved going to. Did you compete at King's Dominion?
No.
Oh,
that sounds fascinating.
King's Dominion and I guess it's Maryland. It's lower because you're from Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, so we would do New England regionals, and then we would do Massachusetts, then New England competitions, and then we would do like U.S. bands at the end of the year. Like that would be the big one that we would travel to.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we probably did lower region.
Understood.
Because we always went to Virginia.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but oh my God, I loved it. But yes, a theater, music person. And I just kind of did as much as I could because I knew that was going to be my end goal.
Yes.
In middle school. I mean.
That's beautiful. Also, it sets the expectation too,
Yeah.
That's nice that you kind of have that where everyone kind of just knows that it's going to happen.
Yeah, it was just kind of, everyone was like, yeah, like Ellie could go over something else, but she's not going to.
Yeah.
And I auditioned for like 13 schools. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was like the classic thing. And Danny did early decision or whatever.
Oh, okay.
He was like, yeah, I auditioned for NYU and I got it. And I was like, that was not my life.
Yeah.
And so I auditioned at all these places and I wasn't going to go to NYU. I was actually going to go to American.
Oh, okay.
I put down a deposit. It was like I got in. I wanted to double major in psychology.
Oh, okay. Understood.
That was another thing. And after I graduated high school, I got an email from NYU being like, I was on the wait list.
Yes.
I got waitlisted at NYU.
Understood.
And they were like, are you still interested? And I was like, well, what? Yes. Mm-hmm. And they were like, then it was like this email chain back and forth for like 2 weeks. And finally they were like, okay, if you're 100% sure that you'll say yes, we will consider taking you off the wait list. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Heard.
And so then it was like mid-June. And everyone else, was like fully committed. I was fully committed to American. I had a roommate.
Yeah.
I had toured the school and NYU sent me my acceptance letter.
Wow.
And I remember getting it and bursting into tears.
Of course.
Because I literally remember being that 8-year-old kid looking up at my dad being like, I'm going to go to NYU.
Yeah.
And I remember him looking at my mom and being like, oh, fuck. We have to pay for it now. We have to, okay, she did it. She did it. So anyway, that's
Hearn.
That was NYU.
Okay.
And it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Amazing.
I was a very scared 18-year-old.
Of course. Yeah.
And I kind of went through college being very confused.
Okay.
And interested.
Okay. Yeah.
And kind of like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but I'm just going to kind of do it.
Okay.
And there were a lot of aspects of the program that worked really well for me. And then there were parts of the program or teachers or classes that like I genuinely didn't get.
Yeah.
I did not understand. Or like they were trying to do something and I was like, okay, so this is not working.
Totally.
Not working. And I think that for me, I had to find a way, if it wasn't working in class, I had to figure out the opposite and then teach myself that.
Okay.
And then when I came into class, I was kind of doing the thing that I taught myself how to do.
Understood.
If that makes any sense.
No, for sure.
And it was kind of like it's the opposite of being like, well, this class isn't working for me, so I'm just not going to do it.
Totally.
Or like, I'm just going to show up and I'm just going to kind of wing it or, lean into whatever the teacher's going, but it's not going to work.
For sure.
And as we might have established, I'm not that kind of a person.
Yes.
And so I was kind of like, well, this is not working, so let me figure out a way to make it work.
Totally.
And I think that is one of the best things I could have ever done.
Heard.
As a young person.
Yeah.
Was like make up my own stuff and through that I was always engaged. And I got I squeezed every drop, I literally still am, out of that program.
Yeah.
I did everything I possibly could. I assistant stage managed, which is how I started my stage management career. I wrote and directed my free plays, which were like student-led shows that we were kind of forced, a little bit, gently forced to do. I TA'd for a bunch of classes. I TA'd particularly for classes that I didn't do well in or that I didn't like.
Okay.
Or teachers that like I did not quite click with immediately.
Interesting.
Particularly my freshman year acting class was very difficult for me. I had never really taken an acting class before coming to NYU, like an official one.
Yeah.
And it totally went over my head. Like it was very overwhelming.
Yeah, for sure.
And so as a junior, I reached out to my teacher and I was like, I want to TA your class because I want to have a second chance in getting this information.
Yeah.
And I mean, truly like the best decision I could have ever made.
Okay.
Because I got to watch people who were me 2 years prior.
Yeah.
And help them when I saw them get stuck.
Understood.
And it really solidified the fact that I was going to be a teacher.
Understood. Yeah. And
reminded me that like I really love teaching. I've always loved teaching. So I forget what your question was.
Just the NYU of it all, the
NYU of it all.
Going through it. Okay.
Yeah. And it was so acting focused, which was exactly what I was going for. I wanted that because I didn't have that training.
Yeah.
I grew up in music classes, like that was never an issue.
Totally.
And I really kind of figured out how to be a storyteller and how to like and I think of myself so much as an actor these days.
Yeah.
And as somebody who is like drama forward.
Yeah. Love, for sure. I mean, it is kind of interesting to have to enter those new realms and then kind of grapple with the fact that you're in a completely new space, like becoming a quote unquote adult, and then also having to like assess what you are lacking in,
Yeah.
And trying to, it's not just a matter of adjusting to the fact of going to college courses. It's, I also have to hone in on what I am not good at and then try and learn how to learn these kinds of things,
Right.
So.
And I feel like I was always, kind of thinking, I'm always thinking one step ahead of myself. Not necessarily everybody, but like it's why I fell into stage management so easily because that job is like thinking about the next thing.
Yeah.
You're always like thinking about the next break when you're in the current session.
Yeah.
And there was so much about college that I was like, future me will thank me for this. And I don't know why, but I'm just like, I think a lot of what we learned in school is coming to me now. Like in the past like 2 years. And I told my students this literally a couple weeks ago when I went to see their showcase.
Aww.
It was very cute. And they were like coming up to me being like, just like sobbing, being like, no, we're graduating. And I told them, I was like, a lot of this is, let it sink in now, but it's not, it'll continue to sink in.
Understood.
Yeah. And like, these days, I really feel like I would love to go back into college again.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing too
Really?
recently, where I was like, yes, I do miss all the comforts of college and stuff, but like knowing what I know now, I think I could approach education in a completely different way, because I think, especially at the beginning, I was so scared and I didn't feel like I belonged or had the right to be there, I think is more the right words.
Exactly.
And so
my experience, yeah.
I was more focused on making sure I could either fly under the radar, and so I could like kind of do it at my own pace or whatnot, or just like really try to prove myself rather than really focusing on the information as much and figuring out how I fit into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to pretend I'm the most academic person. I'm really not. I don't learn well from books, it's not that kind of thing. And in my brain, I'm like, I tried to find the easy ways for things, but in reality, I'm like, I think it was more, I was trying to just figure out it was just survival instincts, it wasn't so much like actually living in the moment and like taking it all in. It was like just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely came out of that towards the end of my college career. But like, if I had been able to start like that and just have more confidence in myself and like just be like, I mean, we're all here to learn. At the end of the day, that's the thing, is like, we are all here to learn. No one is expecting you to be amazing. No one is expecting you to be the best of the best. As soon as you start, you are there to learn and learn how to do the thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would have, knowing what I know now, I think I could approach it very differently and probably get a lot more out of the experience. But that being said, like, I still became a human in those years, and like, I wouldn't be able to rationalize these things in my brain right now if I hadn't done what I did then. So,
right. Yeah. You had to go through it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I do try to tell my students that too, is like, they get so wrapped up in what they should be doing.
Yeah.
And I just, sometimes you want to shake them and be like, stop that. There is no should.
No.
There is no should. And sometimes you have to stick to your guns, but you don't know that when you're 18.
It's true.
And I think that's why the teaching has been so valuable to me, because it really does feel like I'm trying to be the person that I wish I had.
Understood.
When I was in their shoes.
Yeah.
Because, and the other funny thing is, because I made up the class that my friend Charlotte and I teach. We made it up about everything in theater besides acting.
Understood.
And we teach it to the second year musical theater students.
Gotcha. And
it's kind of like half all the jobs and then half also like etiquette.
Understood.
About like the stuff that like maybe you should know in the industry that no one actually tells you, but you learn as you go.
Yeah.
So we try to kind of demystify that.
I love that.
Yeah. And the amount of them that come up to me and they're like, who taught this class when you were a student?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, what? No, this didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so, like, it feels very special to be...
For sure.
I kind of feel like a homeroom teacher for...
Understood.
The program.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, like, so important. I think, like, you and I have an interesting perspective where we have worked professionally in the industry in realms that are not acting.
Yeah.
And, the more that you know of how things work, and the more you have experienced literally a tech week on the other side of everything, the better of a collaborator you will be. And it's going to make your time when you are on stage so much easier for you. And then it's also going to make you so much easier to work with,
100%.
Which is absolute gold, high currency in this field.
It is. I mean, that's what gets you hired again.
Exactly.
And the other crazy thing is, I know as for a fact that I'm a better actor than I was 2 years ago.
Totally.
5 years ago, because I have shifted my mindset from like, again, doing the should.
Yeah.
And just like living life.
Totally.
And the one thing that I always say in the back of my head is when someone gives you an opportunity and you want to take it, you have to take it.
Yeah. And
there are so many moments, if you put into a space that you are a performer, man, do people take advantage of that.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Of course.
In a good way.
Yeah.
But the amount of people who look at me and go, Ellie, you're an actor, right?
Yeah.
Can you get up and do that part for them? Because they're struggling. If we're in an understudy rehearsal, and like they're like, you need another person. Ellie, well, you get up there and you do it. I mean, I've been an emergency sub on a million different shows now.
That's amazing.
And sometimes it's in stage management, but most of the time it's literally acting.
Heard.
I have famous. You know, I feel like sometimes I live my life like I'm on a talk show.
Well, you know what? You finally are.
I'm finally here. I made it. There's this famous story of, we can use that in air quotes, I was assistant stage managing a little play a couple years ago, and this woman, it was a large cast, and it was an older couple. The man was there for call time. The woman was not there. We couldn't find her. 15 minutes till the show starts, and I'm like, I called my PSM, and I was like, I don't know where she is.
Yeah.
Where is Susan? No one knows where Susan is. And she went up and talked to somebody, and then she called me back, and she was like, do you have a script nearby? And I was like, yeah. She was like, can you start looking at the script? And I was like, okay, Susan is like 75.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't know. I mean, it's you or me, and you're an actor.
Heard.
So, and this was the closing night of a festival show.
That's crazy.
And we were at Hudson Guild Theater, and she was like, can you, and this woman, Susan, had 3 dances and a song.
Oh my God.
And I mean, I knew it sort of because I was in the room, but I obviously didn't learn this woman's part. And so she was like, yeah. And then I remember going to the dressing room. Susan had taken all of her costume home.
Oh my God, Susan.
Except she left a vest, this purple vest.
Great.
And she was like, you're just going to have to go on in your blacks, like my show blacks.
Yeah.
So I had a black t-shirt, black leggings, and this purple vest. And Fred is the name of her husband in the show. Came up to me. He was like, I've been told you're going to play Susan's part tonight. Fred is at least 70.
Okay.
If not more. And I was like, I think I am. And he was like, well, okay, let me teach you the dances. So the show starts. They had about 20 minutes until their characters came on. I learned the 3 dances and the solo song.
Yeah. And
literally walked on stage holding a script. This is with an audience. Sold out audience, closing night show. And I remember being in the back of my head being like, am I going to mess this up? Is this going to be horrible? And then I was like, well, literally, who cares? You're getting done on stage. And when I tell you it was one of the finest acting moments I've ever had.
Wow.
I walked on stage and I was like, why am I holding the script? They're hospital papers. My husband's about to die. He's 70 years old. I'm 65.
Yeah.
You know, I have a huge stack of hospital papers. And it tricked people. People come up to me afterwards and they were like, number 1, how old are you? And
Amazing.
number 2, were those hospital papers? And I was like,
wow.
Acting choices. And to this day, Fred and I are still friends. So all this to say is like, I will always remember that. And it was because I just like had this fuck it attitude where I was like, I'm just going to do it. I've been trained in this and like it's in me regardless of when I practice it. It's here. And I feel like, you know, we're getting into 30, you know, like we're approaching 30.
Shut your mouth, but yeah.
Me before you.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah. And a lot of people are kind of like, I'm having a lot of conversations with my friends being like, I'm not acting right now, you know? And I've struggled to really kind of, I've pushed back on it.
Yeah.
Because I also feel that like, oh, I'm not acting right now. But that does not mean that you're not an actor.
That's 100%.
You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people are having that moment right now of like, I used to, you know, use these skills that I practiced for many, many years. And now I don't.
Totally.
But they're still there.
Yeah.
Talent doesn't go away.
No.
It just gets stronger.
You just got to find the ways to continue to nurture what you do outside of a professional setting, you know? Like, we unfortunately, like, getting paid to do this is a luxury at this point in time because
it is.
There's fewer jobs than ever and there's more people trying to do it than ever.
Yeah.
So, you know, you gotta do what you have to so that when the time comes where it is your moment, you are absolutely prepared, you know? And, like, the fuck it attitude is so powerful.
It is.
And it's usually you're usually thrust into the situations where you need to use it and where it like thrives the most. But like, if you can master the fuck it attitude, you will soar. You know, it's really just, it's fight or flight in a way where it's like, I have no choice but to do this. So I'm just going to do it.
I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, now that I sit behind the table a lot, when I see someone who comes in with a fucking attitude, not in an angry way, I think we should be clear. It shouldn't be like,
no,
like an angry, like negative way.
Yeah.
But a fucking attitude in like a playful way, in a curious way, in an excited way. You see that.
Yeah.
You see that. And then you go, oh, this person's here and showing me that they love what they're doing. Because like, that's a thing that, you know, I remember, you know, the first couple years out of college, I stage managed at night and I went to auditions during the day.
Yeah.
And that is what I did every day. I woke up at 6 a.m., walked my little butt over to the Equity Building, wrote my name on that list, and then went back to sleep, then went back, you know, and then stayed there until 5, and then I went to stage manage.
Yep.
And I remember walking into those rooms and being like, what do these people want? And the answer is they want you.
Yeah.
They want you. They want to see who you are and watch some, because that's what we're watching on stage, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Is like a version of you. And if we can see that in a stripped down audition room, one of our teachers in college says, if you change the temperature of the room, that means that the team will not only remember you, but will remember how they felt watching you.
Yeah.
And that's what an audience is.
For sure. I love that.
You know? And that is actually the secret sauce to auditioning.
It is.
Like, and you have to get out of the mindset of like, I'm going in for this show and I'm doing this. It's like, I'm going in and showing them me.
100%.
And then there's a vehicle by which I show them that.
Yep.
It could be a song that I choose. It could be sides. It could be a scene. It could be whatever. But like, I'm showing them me. And my dad said this morning, he was like, you've created a whole brand, which is not true. I don't have a brand. But
I think I would say you have a brand.
I have a brand?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll trust you.
It's just like Ellie TM. Like if you know Ellie, you know.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's a good tagline, actually.
There you go.
If you know Ellie, you know.
There we go.
Honestly, he would love that.
Put that on a business card.
And now you've totally thrown me off in a fantastic way. Oh, yeah, he was saying the thing about the brand. Like, that is true.
Yeah.
That is true that as a performer, but as an artist, we all have brands.
And like, this is a world in which we are salesmen of ourselves. Like, we have to market ourselves, and therefore we are a product.
And we can't be afraid of that.
Nope.
You can't be afraid to market yourself.
Yeah.
And that is scary.
Totally.
That is really scary. And I there's a lot of people, like my mom, prime example. She's fantastically talented.
Yeah.
When she like turns herself on, she's like, she could have been a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
But she was like, I can't do the marketing of myself. That is, I could do it in life, but not coming into a room and selling myself. And so it's an interesting thing that no one tells you when you're younger and, you know, you're doing these little camps.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of what the business of it is.
And like, I think one of the biggest, like, yes, you do have to learn how to like put yourself, like how to present like the package of what your brand is. But at the end of the day, one of the biggest parts and the most essential parts is just being able to walk into a room and be so unapologetically yourself, because that is exactly what it is. So,
yeah. And that's, at least for me, that is my favorite person to cast and my favorite person to work with as a director.
Yeah.
You know, there's some directors who have a lot of ideas and then the show becomes really all their ideas.
Totally.
And we all have ideas. I have plenty of ideas. But 9 times out of 10, your ideas about what you're going to do are probably better than what I think you should do.
Totally.
In my opinion. And so I look for the people who are going to make choices that show me them and show me them comfortably.
Yeah.
You know, and Cinderella that I did at NYU was fully based off of the actors that I cast. But it's so funny. I had them, I love dramaturgy. I'm like a big dramaturgy nerd. And I love non-traditional forms of dramaturgy.
Yeah.
Where like, you know, sure, you can do a glossary in a packet or whatever and you know, define things. but like, what about movies and like podcasts about a show? Like, honestly, like you're talking with Danny, like that's dramaturgy about the shows.
100%.
So I had them create art projects
Gotcha.
based on one of the different Cinderellas. There's a million. I mean, there's like every culture has a Cinderella.
Understood.
There's I mean, like over 1,500 different versions of Cinderellas because it's so universal, this idea of a Cinderella story.
Totally.
And so I had them read. I found like 30 different versions online. Read one and then do an art project based on that story. Mostly because I was not fully confident that they were all going to read the 30. And
Understood.
so I was like, well, if they read one and get really, really into one, then, you know, that's better than 30 nothing.
For sure.
And they all presented these art pieces. And the two princes who I cast, the two princes and then one of the kings, they all are musicians. And their first impulse was to bring in like something that they wrote.
Love.
And I hadn't even clocked that my two princes both played the piano.
Understood.
When I cast them. I kind of knew it in the back of my head because I taught them. So like I knew that they were musical. But it wasn't the reason I cast them.
Understood.
And in thinking through, this production also was centered around two pianos. And in thinking through how to make these two pianos, which were on stage the whole time, in the middle of the stage, how to make them make sense, I was like, what if the prince plays the piano?
Yeah.
So there was a side story that we tracked through. Anyway, all this to say, they came in unapologetically themselves with an idea of something that makes them excited and feel comfortable. And I was like, well, okay, that has to go on the show.
For sure. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
And that's the best thing. When you bring in something you are so passionate about, and then we go, well, that's better than anything I could have come up with.
Totally.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself teaching at NYU? How did you get back into that arena?
Great question. It was a bit of a grandfather weird, like a very fascinating trajectory.
Okay.
So I assistant stage managed all through college, much to many of our teachers' dismay. They were not happy. And that was
Why is that?
They kept telling me I was just an actor.
No, stupid.
I know.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for them, and a lot of them are my colleagues now.
Yeah.
And they couldn't have been more wrong.
No.
I am an actor, but I'm not just an actor.
Yeah.
And that will always be true.
100%.
And I actually don't believe any of us are just actors.
No.
And I think they were just terrified that I was never going to act again. Which, you know, a lot of people like to tell me that I don't act anymore. That I'm focusing on other things. And that's totally fine. But at any given point, if someone called me and was like, I need you on stage tomorrow, I would do 100%.
it. 100%.
And I would be an actor. So, side note. But anyway, so I had to kind of fight my way to have this. I kind of consider it a dual degree.
Gotcha.
Because I kind of every semester was in a show or like sort of in a show of some sort. And I was assistant stage managing a show.
Understood.
So and that was my way of getting literally every drop of that undergrad education.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm here. I'm paying so much money to go here.
100%.
I am not going to waste the time.
Yeah.
And so then when I graduated, I started stage managing as a means to make money. And I first started stage managing actually while I was in school, and then graduated, did a show outside of school that was bumpy, to say the least.
Understood.
And then I wrote the administrator of the program and was like, hey, I'm going to start auditioning, but I'm going to have my nights free. Can I stage manage for you?
Oh,
and she
great.
was like, well, we've never hired a student to stage manage before. But I was like, but I've graduated and I have a little resume. And so she was like, okay, let's do a trial run and see. So I started so that worked.
Yeah.
And I spent the next year essentially learning how to really stage manage, doing these NYU productions.
Gotcha.
And I kind of never really left the program. I left it for a summer. But then I was kind of always stage managing. And so then I started stage managing there. I started stage managing off Broadway. And really kind of grew my knowledge base of theater.
Yep.
And then COVID hit, everything stopped. And the one job that was available was becoming the virtual production manager of our program.
Okay.
Now, let me tell you, Brennan, I am not a production manager.
Heard.
To anyone listening listening to this who knows me and has worked with me in a technical way, I can understand technical things, but I should not be the one managing them.
Understood.
So, but it was virtual, so it was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I did that for 2 years. And the big thing that I learned was I was teaching the crew members how to be crew members.
Gotcha.
And Kent, the head of our program, realized that the crews that me and my teaching partner, Charlotte, were leading knew what was going on.
Understood.
And were all of a sudden had this knowledge that he was like, maybe we should teach this.
Gotcha.
What we were teaching them.
Yeah.
And so it started as an idea of how to teach these actors the other stuff. And then it also kind of blossomed into it's the place where these second year students go before they get to audition for projects.
Yeah.
Because we can't audition for the first year and a half while you're in school at NYU. At least in the undergrad program. So it kind of became a bridge. And so we tried it for a semester. It was almost kind of like seminars.
Yeah. Understood.
And he was kind of like, we'll see how this goes.
Totally.
And then he gave us one semester. And that was 4 years ago.
Heard.
And so we just have been doing it ever since.
Yeah. That rocks. That's
Isn't that
so
awesome?
Cool. It's not only awesome, but it is also just so important. You know?
For them and for me.
100%.
I'm such a gig worker. All the shows I do are so random and one after another. And it is so important for me Friday mornings, which is when I teach the class, to go and sit. We teach in a basement. Go and sit in this basement and forget the industry for a second.
Yeah. And
just teach these students.
I love that.
And I also bring them with me. If I'm actively doing a show, I'll bring them into the booth. I have them sit with a calling script. If I'm calling the show, they'll sit with the calling script and they'll read along with me.
Yeah.
I give them tours. I brought a bunch of them as my assistants. I created an observership program on Cinderella for a handful of students who were interested in directing or costume design or music directing, choreography.
Yeah.
And so we had an observership class
on
Cinderella. And so I feel it is feeding my professional work in a really, really important way that I know I would have loved to take advantage of when I was a student.
It's also you are living proof that this works. You are in the industry because you started stage managing just out of pure necessity and then made these connections and then inserted yourself into these places and are well respected in all of those realms, They are being taught these things by someone who is firsthand proof that it works.
It works.
Yeah.
And now, after 8 years or so of stage managing professionally, I still stage manage, but I'm starting to carve a road that's more directing focused.
Yeah.
And so that's my current challenge is curating opportunities as they may come that are more in the world of directing.
Totally.
Which is not an easy thing to do because
No.
It's the two careers have similarities but are different.
Yes.
And that's the current exciting challenge.
For sure. I love that.
Yeah. And so I'm the reverse of not putting myself in a box. I will always be these three things, but I get to choose.
Totally.
Which lane I'm going to do at any given point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's amazing. Good for you. That rocks. And it's just also just so relieving to hear that the newer generations that are entering this field are starting to get training like that, and I hope that continues among many programs and stuff. But first of all, proud of you for doing that. And just, really relieved that people can start to have this more well-rounded approach. Because I don't know, going back to what you said, the people who say that they are just actors, those are the most boring people. They're the most boring people. Even if they're working, they're probably the hardest people to work with for various reasons. And even if you have talent, I don't care how much talent you have, if it is not equally weighed out by being pleasant to work with and easy to be around, then it is it is not worth it for anyone to work with you.
No.
It's not.
And you're also proof of this because of everything that you're doing to curate your life.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's so important to have other things to focus on. So it's because also it'll make you crazy.
100%. Yeah.
You can't just do it every day, all day, acting.
No.
Oh my gosh.
No.
No one could take that much self-focus.
Yeah. And you just get lost in this world of non-reality too, the more that you don't get me wrong, you have to put in the work. It's good to dive into things, but it cannot be all you do because the world is moving on without you. You know, you are isolating yourself in a certain way, in a certain field and realm where you are just not going to be prepared for then the time where you are not on a contract.
Right.
You know, you will be absolutely at your wit's end. You will be more scared than ever. So you got to have a life. You do.
You do. And I feel like that's what makes you the best actor.
100%.
I just think that it all comes back around to that. Like, better than any of the acting classes that you could have ever taken.
Totally.
You know, is just by being a full human.
100%.
A 360 human.
Multi-faceted artistry, you know, whether that be acting and cooking or, you know, acting and embroidering, you know.
Yes.
It doesn't even have to be acting, technical theater, whatever. The more facets of yourself that you have, the more of an asset you will be.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, totally. And you'll have more access to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Ellie, do you have any other wisdom that you feel like you would like to share? Any words to the young Ellies out there in the world?
You know, to the young Ellies, stick to your guns.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, if you know, you know.
There you go.
And you don't have to question that.
No.
And I also think that when you don't know, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to kind of let the wind take you. And currently sitting here, none of this would have happened if I hadn't been like, oh, this internship? Okay, sure, that's crazy. Let's do it. Oh, I'll just stay here in the summer and, like, you know, help this production company? Sure, okay. You need a company manager? Okay, sure, I'll go to Denver.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. You know, like, all of it was just because little Ellie was like, I'll just see where the wind takes me.
There we go.
And I strongly believe that we are humans first.
100%.
We're people first.
Yes.
People, you can be an artist person first, but, like, you know, you need to have things that are going to ground you no matter what.
Exactly.
And so I'm grateful that is number one, and that I can then create art because I'm grounded.
Of course. Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, folks.
Do you have anything to the little Brennans?
I mean, along the lines, what was really just speaking to me about what you just said is, like, all of you young folks out there who are living in your small towns and whatnot, and, like, being faced by authority of parents and teachers and whatnot, have faith in yourself and trust your gut, okay?
Yeah.
You know, follow what your gut is telling you, and if that goes against what you are told by your parents or you are told by your teachers or your guidance counselors or whatever, you know yourself best, so set yourself up for success. That being said, don't let that be driven by lack of self-worth or doubt in your abilities. Just lead with the good that will come out of it. But, like, trust your gut, set yourself up for success in the ways that you feel most aligned with, and just be comfortable in who you are and stand strong in what you believe in. And that's that.
And that's that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you. You heard it here first, folks. Go out there, grab the world by the reins, and just, you know, do your thing. Make your path.
You get to make it.
Yes. Get out there, start becoming a multifaceted human and a multifaceted artist.
Just say fuck it a lot.
Say fuck it a lot in a positive way, because what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, we are rooting for you.
We sure are.
We are your biggest supporters, and you can be our biggest supporters by finding us on Patreon. Folks, that is patreon.com/BA to Broadway. Just your general reminder that we are not gatekeeping any vital information on there. That is just for fun, silly bonus content, little looks into the lives of the people that I trick on to being on the show, you know, silly industry stories. So go check us out over there. Also, news that I've said the past couple times, but if you're just tuning in, it's cheaper now. Times are tough. Things are expensive. Tariffs, I can tell you, working in a retail setting, are tearing this place apart, you know? So I want to make it a little bit more accessible. So get on over there and join us. Shout out to our newest Patreon members. We had a little bit of an influx. Shout out to our newest principal tier Patreon members, Amber, Amanda G, Devin, and Sarah F. Thank you so much. And if you want to become a member of this fun community, hop on over to the Patreon. As always, you can find us on most social media platforms at BA2Broadway. Ellie, where can folks find you if you want to be found?
Probably Instagram.
Amazing.
And it's just my name, Ellie Handel.
Lovely. Ellie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for asking me.
Oh my God, you are welcome back literally anytime. And until that next time, folks, bye. From BA to Broadway is created, produced, and edited by Brennan Stefanik, music by Dylan Kaufman, and cover art by Jordan Vongsithi.